Welcome to the Spurs Roundtable, powered by Project Spurs. I am your host, Jeff Garcia, and the Spurs just don't seem to lose. The streak is now at 17. So to talk about that and a lot more, I am joined by Aaron Preine of ProjectSpurs.com and our newest writer, Chelsea Torres, also of ProjectSpurs.com. You can see her debut post at the site as well. And, of course, Aaron, hosting the Spurscast already. And if you haven't seen the new logo, go check it out. But as far as the Spurs are concerned, 17. We are at 17 games in a row. This team looks like they're a juggernaut right now. They're tied the franchise record. They're going to go to break it coming up on Monday, but they got a big test on Monday. Chelsea, who do they got?
I think right now, if we're talking about the streak, I think that we shouldn't really think of it as an important thing. I think right now we're kind of peaking too early. Papa said before that, you know, it's nice to lose a game. And only because, you know, I think before with the previous championships or previous playoffs, we've had the long streaks and then we lose back-to-back like we did with the Grizzlies. But I think with the Pacers right now, coming up tomorrow night, I think that'll be a big test because, one, they're one of the biggest teams in the NBA. They have big guys, which means that they have a really good defensive system, and that's going to be hard for us passing and shooting. You know
what, Chelsea brought up a good point. They got Indiana tomorrow. Big team, one of the best in the NBA right now. They're a little struggling right now, but nonetheless, this could be a finals preview. Knowing Spurs fans, if they lose tomorrow, it's doom and gloom. This team can't beat the big teams when it counts,
that old narrative comes back, but you know, last night against Pelicans, you kind of saw Thiago Splitter not getting any minutes, so it ended up being a night off for him, and that's important with the game against Indiana coming up. They've lost 8 of the last 15. They're not able to find that rhythm that they had at the start of the season. They made it a big mission of theirs to take away the top seed in the East away from Miami. They were saying if they had the top seed last year, they would have beaten the Heat and gone to the finals. But yeah. They're struggling to get Evan Turner going, and they're not together right now.
You know, but speaking of the streak, though, a couple of nights ago against Denver at home, the Spurs looked vulnerable. They almost lost it, and even though they did win, one thing I took away from that is this: if the Spurs are going to lose a series or a game, it's going to be on them. It was really mainly turnovers that really caused a scare in the Spurs streak.
Complacency.
Yeah. Chelsea, is it really come down to complacency, or is this team heads above the class of the NBA right now, even above Indiana and Miami?
I personally think we're above everybody. The way that we pass, the way that we shoot, the players that we had, the fact that we have Bellinelli coming off just after last night's game against the Pelicans. He led the team, he led the Spurs in scoring with 18 points. So the fact that we have these players that are coming off the bench, and even though Bellinelli did start last night, it's just the fact that we have a deeper team than any other team in the league, and I would say maybe the other deepest would maybe be the Clippers.
Well,
but that's debatable.
There is the OKC. OKC is still the prime, I guess, opponent that the Spurs fans and I'm pretty sure the team itself are keeping a close eye on. OKC might be the one to stop any type of Spurs return to the finals.
And it's a matchup issue because of Durant and Ibaka, that athletic, tall front court that has mid-range capability. If you look around the teams that give Spurs fits, like Portland and Chris Bosh in Miami, it's because they have those mid-range big men who are athletic and can rebound. And so, but this Spurs team, and she pointed it out, that they have so many options off the bench, and it's such a different squad from last year's Spurs because with the ascension of Patty Mills, the addition of Marco Bellinelli, you have more options behind Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, and Manu Ginobili is not struggling this season, whereas last season you had to rely on Corey Joseph and hoping that Gary Neal didn't have an off night.
Chelsea brought up a good point, and I brought it in the last show. Is this team peaking too soon? 17 in a row, that type of sustained success they've had in the regular season right now might come back to haunt them, as we've seen in previous seasons.
If this was any other team besides a Greg Popovich team, I would say yes. But this is a team that stays grounded. And even though, like the other night you were talking about with they almost had that loss, they gave up the game against Denver. Even though they had a lot of complacency issues and some struggles, those are the moments where Popovich is happy because he's at his best when he's teaching. And Tim Duncan said it the other night as well after the second game against Denver.
Chelsea, what does this streak mean overall? What does it really mean when it comes to the playoffs? Does it really matter, or does it kind of hit the reset button come opening night of the playoffs?
I personally think that it doesn't matter. I think once playoffs come, we're going to have a little bit of a better idea of how we fit up against other teams. But right now, I just don't think the streak really matters. I mean, it's nice that we hit the franchise record for, I think, 96. I think that was last time. But right now, they're just trying to focus day to day.
Right, and I see what you're saying. It really doesn't matter. But in my mind, it kind of does matter. One, it established themselves as, hey, look, this is the Spurs, that kind of like that aura of like, wow, they just won't die. They're like zombies. They just come back for more. And also, I like the fact that without this streak, the Spurs team would not have the pattern they have in the overall NBA standings as far as the West standing, because they got to push OKC. Because if they push OKC down to 2 or below, then they have the rougher path to the finals. We talked about this before, haven't we?
Yeah, and March was a really good month for the Spurs because they were just getting back from all the array of injuries that they were suffering with. It was a weaker schedule. They were able to get their rhythm back, really got their rhythm back.
Right.
And then now the last 2 weeks of the season into April, it's more of a test, starting with Indiana, then they got Golden State, and then at Oklahoma City. So they're going to have some tests and some other tough opponents, including some division rivals.
Right.
So it'll be a good last leg of the season going into the playoffs.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because we've been talking about it, alluding to it. They have Indiana tomorrow, I believe the Warriors on Wednesday, OKC on Thursday. That's a difficult back-to-back. And this is it. This could be the first true test. Of the 3 teams, do you think the Spurs are going to sweep it, or who do you think they're going to drop it to?
I think that with how important the Oklahoma City game is, and it's the second night of a back-to-back, I think they might rest some players on the front end against Golden State. And Golden State's really in panic mode right now because they've been sort of struggling. There's been a lot of questions with the coaching staff. So I think Golden State will finally kind of get over the hump. They've been struggling against the Spurs this season. So I think they'll lose it there.
Chelsea, though, but still, this is a Spurs team that can actually play and beat teams, top teams, without probably the big guns that they have.
I think tomorrow will be a big test of how well we can play against Indiana. Just the fact that we haven't played them since December 7th, and we lost. So the fact that we can play tomorrow night, and if we do well, I think that'll be great. Wednesday against Golden State, I'm honestly not that worried. They don't scare me as much as OKC does. OKC, though, that will be, because they are, like Aaron said, they're a perfect matchup with us.
Is it doom and gloom for the Spurs if in the playoffs if they were to lose against OKC?
No. It just gives them more to work on, gives Pop more to coach with, and they take everything, win or lose, as a learning experience. They build from it, and they're the most disciplined team in the NBA by far.
All right, so we know the 17-game winning streak right now looks like it's not stopping in sight. So if you look back, who is the MVP of the streak? Start with Chelsea.
I would probably say Kawhi. I would say Kawhi would be the MVP, and Bellinelli would probably be the most improved player.
All right. Aaron?
How about the absence of Nando De Colo?
Oh, that's pretty much it.
I agree. It's Kawhi Leonard. Ever since he came back from the hand injury, he's been more aggressive on offense. His defense has been very, as Pop put it yesterday, demonstrative, and he's getting more and more aggressive, and his impact in the game is becoming more apparent each game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a tie. I'm going to go with Kawhi and Pop. I think Pop has been managing the minutes so well during this winning streak, sitting players down. And how many times we've seen, in the game, I guess it was Denver, where they sat down. A couple of years, it was a Golden State, one of the big games they played. They sat down. I'm thinking, okay, this is it. They're going to lose. And then they plug in players like Mills, like Bellinelli, like even Day. And you're getting contributions out of this team. Popovich, how is this guy not even up in mentioning for Coach of the Year this season? It's beyond me. But the fact of the matter is,
that award tends to go to coaches who have built up, unknown
the stars.
The stars, the squads that have struggled the previous season, that kind of stuff.
Sure, but nonetheless, I got Pop. I mean, he's been brilliant managing the minutes. He's been brilliant resting players. He's been really good at substitution patterns, taking out players when they look a little ragged. Managing even sub players like Danny Green, who's being injured right now. So I think Pop and Kawhi right now are my 2 MVPs of the streak. But nonetheless, just before we close right now, I got you on record. You said it's going to end in...
I think Golden State will finally... the streak will end. They'll win their 18th against Indiana, and then I think Golden State will be... It'll be the end of it.
Chelsea?
I think it'd be a little tougher against OKC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be a tougher matchup.
And I think it probably went end tomorrow against Indiana.
Yeah.
I think the size issue that Indiana presents to Spurs is going to rear its ugly head, and it's something to be concerned about, especially if they draw Memphis in the first round.
One last thing about Indiana, the Spurs are going for the 18th win in a row, of course, but if they win against Indiana, they'll tie the franchise record for most road wins, most road victories, which was 29-12. Right now they're 28-8, so they have a chance to get to 30+.
All right, well. There's Aaron dropping some knowledge right there that I didn't know about. But no, definitely go out to ProjectSpurs.com and check out all of our coverage of the San Antonio Spurs heading into the playoffs. Go ahead and read Chelsea's debut post as well as Aaron on his Spurs cast. But for Chelsea Torres and Aaron Preine, I am Jeff Garcia. Thanks again for watching this episode of the Spurs Roundtable.